Today, I'm talking to Scott Payne with more than 20 years of experience in home building and real estate. He served as the Vice President of New Home Sales at his previous brokerage, National Vice President of Sales Operations for a Fortune 500 builder, and Charlotte Division President for a major regional builder. Scott learned the business and was leading national companies through the Great Recession, from the terrible downturn to success. Scott not only knows the builder business, he knows how to bring solutions and opportunities in the worst of times and situations. Today, he is a managing broker and VP of New Development Services for Atlanta Fine Homes, Sotheby's International Realty. We talk about how to represent builders. Thanks for listening to the Jere Metcalf Podcast, where top real estate agents tell how they do it. This podcast was created for real estate agents across the country to come together, sharing ideas to take your, their, and our business to the next level. All right, everybody, it's the Jere Metcalf Podcast, and today we have with us from Atlanta, Scott Payne, a broker in our office who specializes in working with builders and developers. Scott, thanks for being with us today.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. And I hope it's okay. It's Casual Friday. So during the podcast anyway, I'm a little bit casual today.
I forgot about casual. I've got my fancy, right? And this show is going to release on Thursday. So.
All right. Well, so it's a preview then for next Casual Friday.
So tell us a little bit. Today, we're going to talk about the difference between working with builders and working with everybody else or resell clients, which is usually what residential agents are doing. Right. But before we do that, tell us a little bit about you, how and why you got in the business.
Yeah, I'll give you just kind of the short version of the story, and it will probably segue into talking about builders and developers. But the first part of my career was in construction and home building. And I graduated from the University of Georgia. I had a degree in real estate, believe it or not, that's actually a thing. But I went straight into construction. I was a construction manager for 5 years. I worked for a small private firm at the time. We ended up growing over the course of about 15 years, and I was able to kind of grow alongside the company. It was a good time in the market, a lot of upward trajectory. So I was able to learn and grow as the company grew. And then I moved from that company in the downturn over to Pulte Homes. And so I spent 4 years at a Fortune 500 home builder. It was a very different kind of environment, but it was a great experience, another great learning opportunity. And then as the market was reestablishing itself in 2012, I felt like it was a good opportunity to pivot out of that world into the world of brokerage. And so my goal was to leave Pulte and begin a brokerage platform that would support builders and developers. And I knew that as the market reemerged, a lot of the same people that I had great relationships with would be starting home building companies, and understood that they were going to want to approach their sales and marketing differently than they had in the past. They didn't want salespeople on staff. They didn't want sales managers and the overhead of a whole sales organization on their books. And so they were going to be looking to outsource those things. That turned out to be true. I did that on my own for about 4 years before I aligned with Atlanta Fine Homes, Sotheby's International Realty. And the goal there was just to find a best-in-class marketing brand and a best-in-class marketing platform that could really help my clients grow and help me grow along with them. So that's kind of the short version of the story.
So you started with another company for 15 years. And what exactly did you do for them?
So the name of the company was McCarr Homes, and I began with them as a project manager. So I worked on site as a building superintendent. I did that growing up. I worked on job sites. I worked on framing crews and drywall crews and kind of learned the business from the ground up. So it was kind of a natural transition out of college to go into construction management. So I did that for 5 years before I transitioned into sales and marketing, and then kind of moved into some positions of leadership with that company. Eventually ended up as a division president for their Carolinas division. And so that's kind of how the transition from construction to sales and marketing happened.
Wow. And then, of course, the Great Recession. And And then Pulte for 4 years.
Yep.
And from Pulte, you were in sales?
Yeah, I was. So I did a couple different things there. I moved to Charleston as one of the market managers for the sales and marketing operations. So I oversaw both Pulte and Del Webb brands. Very soon after I joined that company, they acquired Syntex Homes. So I had two very large home building organizations that were merging. I got asked to take a job to help develop and manage the merger and integrations of the two sales operations between the companies. So I worked on that for a year, and when that was done, I moved into a role as the National Vice President of Sales, which was, I lived here in Atlanta. Home office was in Detroit, so I was commuting from Atlanta to Detroit, also managing the National Call Center in Phoenix, and so it was a turbulent time, but a lot of fun, a lot of really, really smart people at the company, and so we had a chance to really develop some great systems and some great processes. I got a lot of exposure to a lot of really new, fresh ideas, so it was a great experience for me.
Wow, and then you come into the crazy world of residential real estate agents who are contractors, not the employees of builders. What did that look like? Because now your role at Atlanta Fund Homes is you are sales manager / head of development, or help everybody. Because I think there are a lot of questions around who is Scott Payne? What does he do?
Right.
Let's get that cleared up.
Okay, sure.
Keep going.
Yeah, so I came to this company as Vice President of Developer Services. And so my role when I moved into the company was to manage builder developer business. So I had a lot of existing relationships, but the company needed a little bit of expertise too. We're the number one new construction brokerage in Atlanta by almost 40% over our next closest competitor. And a lot of people don't know that. They don't think about us as a new construction brokerage because of our reputation and name in the brokerage world. But we do a lot of it. And there are a lot of people here that do new construction. And so that's what I came here to do, is to help kind of put make sure that our agents had a resource. So if they had a relationship with a builder and developer, how do we turn that into business for them and for the company? And how do we support builders and developers? But I have a lot of sales leadership in my background. And so as we expanded the Buckhead office to 3 brokers from 2, I was asked to take on that role as well. And so I am a managing broker, and so I work with agents every day, like, you and your team and the others around you in the office, to help, give them advice and input on a daily basis, but also help them to think about, how they grow their business and grow their career. And I do have that from my past in the home building world, but you touched on a very interesting thing, which is my background was one of employer-employee. And so the people who work for us, myself included, we were employees. So this world of independent contractors is a little bit different. You go from having policy that you can set and enforce to suggesting to people how they might want to attack something.
Exactly. And I would wonder, in that, and we'll get into the topic is we're going to delve into working with builders, but I think this is relevant in understanding that is being from that world, and you kind of came from the builder mindset, and builders come and hire us as agents, and we're agents traditionally and most of the time not working with builders. Mm-hmm. So let's start with that perspective to give agents a perspective listening to the show. What was that like? What is the difference between an on-site salesperson that's employee at Pulte and a real estate agent working for a brokerage?
Yeah, so there are really kind of 3 layers to that, not just 2. So it's one thing to be an on-site agent working as an employee or a captive agent for one particular builder. And that does feel a lot like an employee-employer relationship. There's policy and procedure that you follow. You've got set guidelines for just about everything that you do. We're not making contractual changes. We're not, we're just enforcing the policy that's in place. We've got our product and our processes, and, consumers need to fit into that process if that's going to be the builder that they choose. You have the general brokerage agent, which it's a very different mentality. You're on the listing side, it's very, it's more transactional. You're developing that relationship with your seller client, but then when you're dealing with agents and their buyer clients, you're shifting back into transaction mode. What are the deal points, negotiating the best deals for our seller clients. And then you have new home agents that work for a firm like ours as a general broker. And so we do a lot of things. When a company comes to us, they generally need more than just a salesperson to sell their home. They're typically looking for some strategic input. They're looking for guidance and direction on, not just pricing strategy, but home content. So what goes into the house, whether it's a single custom build or a neighborhood of, 15, 25 or 100 plus homes, all of those things need to be thought through. But I'll tell you this, that the thing that the builders, I hear most commonly from builders, their complaint about agents that represent them is they feel like the agents that represent them are acting like a buyer's agent. So you're presenting an offer to a seller, but trying to convince them why the buyer's offer is a good one. And it's tricky because as a new home agent, even though we are representing the seller, we can't count on the buyer's agent to fully understand that process. So we do have to act in some ways like a buyer's agent when we're talking to the buyer. They make decisions on a lot of different things, whether it's the area, the neighborhood, the home plan, the design choices, financing programs. And so we have to find out what's most important to them first, how much they know about that situation with the current builder, and then be able to facilitate that sale forward. But then when we go back to our builder client to present an offer, you've got to make sure they know who you represent here. That I'm representing you, I'm looking out for your best interests, and I think these are the things that will help get you across the finish line.
Well, I think to help, because I think that's a great learning point for all of us just in negotiating in general, is kind of a self-awareness check. When you explain this, the agent working exclusively for an agent, the agent is really there just to enforce policy almost. Be nice, customer service, and enforce the ground rules that we have already set. And then you have a builder engage with a broker or a traditional brokerage, and you come across agents who are in the mindset of, okay, we got to get the deal done. This is what they want to do. And it almost feels like they're being asked to acquiesce, as opposed to the property being positioned to, this is what it is new construction, this is how it works, you want this. And it's almost like a difference in how it's the things need to be properly framed by the builder representative, whoever that is, to engage the buyer.
Yes, not only on the buyer side, that you're right, that's important. I think the real key to being successful and having a builder client want to come back to you and use you over and over again is being able to give good, solid advice on the front end of the process. So there are times, unfortunately, where we intersect with a builder that's with another brokerage and they're unhappy for whatever reason. And they're thinking about making a change. And typically, it's just a lack of sales. Just sales aren't occurring at the pace they thought they were going to. So you have to really start peeling back the layers of the onion to figure out why. And what I find a lot of times is that it's not necessarily the agent's fault, right? The builder forced some decisions on the market that the market didn't want. But the breakdown is when the agent isn't strong enough to be able to communicate. This is what the market expects. I understand that you want to get $1 million for this house, but the market's only going to pay you $750,000 for this house. If you produce this house at this specification level, the price is going to be $750,000 regardless of what you want it to be. So you've got to have those kind of conversations up front with them to help them understand what the expectation is and should be. If you don't, that's typically where I see the rub. And then 6 months or 8 months later, when the home is being delivered to market, the pricing's wrong, and the agent comes back to the builder for a pricing reduction. And then the builder thinks that they're not doing their job. All they want is a price reduction. I've put out the work. And really, it could have probably been avoided up front. So when we look for builder clients here, we try to make sure that we work with builder clients who want that type of input, who are willing to receive it, and who want to strategize together on what type of product to bring to market.
Wow. So what do you think is the biggest lesson for us? There are a lot of agents in resale who really want to get into new construction. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that means you've got to understand the market up front. How do you predict and predict the trajectory of the market? Because you're building now, but you're probably going to sell it down the road.
Right. So the answer is you can't. And I think that's really a key thing to talk about up front. So again, is, you're in an environment where you're coming up with market pricing today, and you've got to be clear about that. This is market pricing today. And I've seen this a lot in the past where builders will say, well, the market's been increasing at, 4% per year for the last 3 years. So we can, project out that pricing should be, 4 to 6% higher. It's only going to get better. And you can't do that. You have to make decisions based on what you know today. If you get towards the end of the process and you don't have the project, you don't have it under contract, at that point, you have to make adjustments either up or down. And sometimes we adjust up. We do find that, the market has improved and there is an opportunity for that. Or if there are, 15 to 20 houses in the neighborhood, you might sell the first few at one price, and due to market factors and proven product, you can increase those prices.
Which happens, I think happens pretty often. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's a huge at Pulte and at McCarr. I'm sure that was a big part of the decision-making process. And, you've got where you're hiring brokers to market, and then you're hiring numbers people to analyze the market and analyze the numbers. Everybody's got their theories on, for example, what is it? The rate of unemployment is supposed to be a determining factor of market trajectory. But right now, or recently, employment's been down, but it's not preventing people from buying.
That's right.
And unemployment's going back up. Unemployment's going back down. Sorry, I'm getting my numbers backwards. But
no, it's okay. You're right. It's a good, those are the things right now. We've got a condo project in town that we're bringing to market right now. And it's been in the works for almost 2 years. It takes a while to get these things done. So we've got this new thing now where, these are $250,000 to $600,000 condominiums. So we've got a very specific target consumer group that we're going after there. And, so now the banks are coming back and saying, well, we understand everyone's moving to the suburbs, so we've got to help reconnect the banks to that target consumer group. These are not people who are going to sacrifice in-town living to move to the suburbs. Okay, they are looking for infill opportunities. They're also not working in those employment sectors where unemployment is most rampant, like in service industries, hotels, restaurants, and things like that. So you do have to look kind of sector by sector, always staying very, very focused on that target consumer group. And all the decisions that we make need to radiate from who your buyer is.
Exactly. And I think that's probably what the builders are looking for as well, is agents that can do that and know how to deliver and observe that. Yeah. Back to my question earlier, and then we'll delve more into working with builders, but I would like to hear, because you came from this world of really truly the builder world, mm-hmm. and evolved into this traditional brokerage world.
Right.
Do you find there's a difference in what is it in the mindset of each industry and the salespeople in each industry, and what the strengths and weaknesses are of each?
So, I think candidly, the difference in sales agents, there is a little bit of a difference. You've got, if you work for a builder, the traffic is being generated and driven to you for you. And when you're on your own in general brokerage, you have to do that by yourself. That's completely up to you. And so it is a little bit of a different mentality of, what do I do to convert traffic versus what I do to generate my own business and my own traffic. So you've got to go, lower down in that pipeline and figure out, I've got to drive people into that funnel that I can convert, versus if you work for a new home builder, you're figuring out how to take people who are there putting in the funnel and getting them out the other side. So, it's subtle, but it's still sales. And in the end, it's still, we're all only being compensated for what we sell, whether you work for a builder or you work for someone like us. I think the difference is when you get into leadership and you have people who work in that world, in the home building world, and they do have a mentality that these are employees and we're going to do it my way, and we're going to do it my way because this is the policy that I'm setting. That's never really been my style. I'm a collaborative kind of a leader anyway. I want to get people who work around me, who are capable of making their own decisions, who are capable of giving me good input, and they come to me when they need strategy, and guidance, so we can think things through together. And that mentality works really, really well in the independent contractor world too. And so some people can make that shift and some people can't. And the advantage that I have though is working for a brand like ours with agents like you, who most of the conversations that I'm having with our agents are affirming what they already think they know. They'll call me to say, hey, let's talk this thing through. I ask, what are your thoughts so far? What do you think we should do? And generally I'm saying, I think you're spot on, or let's just make this little tweak. But we also get exposed to some really unusual things. We've got a wide client base and a wide range of agents. And so, I do learn things every day, and we've got to go, I'll call another broker if I've got a question about it, So just the main difference there is we're guiding and influencing and trying to help and support versus dictating policy and things like that.
It sounds like your style with agents is your style with the builders as well.
Very much so. Mm-hmm.
Strategic. What is the strategy? What is the advice? Dig a little deep, make sure we're on track. And what do you find? Because builders need, like you said, they need someone who's strategic. They need someone who there's a lot more at risk. Well, home sellers might argue, but you're talking about a builder's career. You're talking about more properties. You're talking about a longer process. You're talking about a lot more details that get a lot more complicated.
Yep.
And I think there's a little bit of a glamour around doing new construction as an agent. But what would you say if you're going to do new construction as an agent with a traditional brokerage? What are the things you really need to know up front and educate yourself on first?
And so that's a great point. You would know this because you do new construction. It's not as glamorous as it looks. And a lot of people think that. I want to get into new construction. I love new construction. What you love is that beautiful end product that's shiny.
And the way that new paint smells, right?
Yes, it's fantastic. But getting there is not always pretty. I think representing builders and developers, the one thing, that I always have in the back of my mind is how much risk and pressure is associated with what they do. They're taking out loans, and in today's environment, it's private equity for the most part. It's not institutional capital. And that comes with a tremendous amount of pressure. And so if you're falling behind on your build schedule, then your interest meter's ticking. And so that means that your profit is going down. Every extra day in that cycle, your profit diminishes. So the quicker you can get that done. We have problems now with supply chain. So material costs are going up. We projected one budget. It looks like it's going to be something else.
And they take longer sometimes, and then that costs more money. And yeah, it's exponential.
And so the builders are watching their profits diminish as this is happening. They're also fielding calls from investors as this is happening. Why hasn't it sold yet? Or why haven't you gotten the home to drywall yet? There's a tremendous amount of pressure on them. And it's a daily thing. If you want to be a builder, you have to just learn how to live with that. So as we represent them, we try to keep those things in mind. How we have conversations with them about making sure the job sites are clean. It's not a critical conversation. It's just, can I get some help with the job site this week? Or could you send somebody by this week? It's not a complaining thing. We're collaborating with them. It's just a tough position for them to be in. And there is always, always pressure on them. You just have to keep that in mind when you're working with your builder clients.
Well, it's a great point. I think as agents, there's always a concern about how do I develop business? How do I retain business? How do I build business? In that position, you easily become either the target, even if it's not your fault, you easily can become the easy one to blame because the investors go after the builder goes after you, you're at fault. Or that's also an opportunity to be the solution. And what's the difference between the agent who ends up at fault and the agent who ends up being the solution for that builder?
It's that upfront conversation, making sure that the strategy is right up front. So you hit on another thing I say all the time, which is sales cures everything. You sell a house, everybody's fine. The investors are fine. The builders are fine. And there's bumps along the road with clients when you're trying to finish a house with a client involved too. But sales cures everything. And so if you don't have sales, it begins to create all kinds of those friction points between investors and builders and agents. But it really goes back. When I see it break down, it's because a strategic decision in the beginning was not properly assessed and made. So builders are very opinionated. The types of personalities that are willing to take those types of risks also are very opinionated about product and about what they're going to provide. They'll look at the highest data points in the market to come up with their pricing. So you've got to be very firm and really help them understand why their expectation level should be what it really should be. So you've got to be good at assessing that, not just taking what they give you and going straight to market with it.
And to your point, you talk about how opinionated they are and how they're proud of their work, and nothing against builders. That's what makes a good builder.
Absolutely.
But on the flip side of that, everybody's strength can be their weakness. Your own strength can turn into your Achilles heel. So how do you have that conversation when we're in such a competitive market with such a low barrier to entry that there are a lot of brokerages, a lot of agents that will just acquiesce to get the business? Mm-hmm. I guess you become the second agent.
Right? I'd rather be the second one in when the first one fails than go into it with the failing strategy up front. And it, like I said, it happens. We do see that happen. I've learned in my career, first of all, I only want to work with people who are fun to work with and be around. I mean, there are plenty of people in our side of the business and the builder side that just really aren't that much fun to be around. So life's too short. It's a high intensity environment. Let's have fun while we do it. But we do, again, it's really making sure that you have those conversations up front, and there is business that you should say no to. If it's not going to work, it's really not worth investing the time.
Especially in new construction. It's expensive, not just for the builder, but very expensive for the agent.
Yes.
Time, effort, people, manpower,
right.
Marketing.
Yeah, you can put a lot of time into a project. And I think the other thing too is if you have something that you think might be a builder or a developer opportunity, something that it's a land or lot or something along those lines, you really need to sit down with somebody that understands if it is or if it isn't. And I do get a lot of those things across my desk where someone has a family farm or something that's 15 acres and it's in a good suburban market. But when you really sit down and look at the land, it's got a creek going one way and a power line easement going the other, and the topo is untenable or doesn't have access to sewer. There are a lot of things that just looking at something on a flat piece of paper versus a proper market assessment will tell you, it's not a builder developer opportunity. It's best
exactly.
Just a single family farm or whatever.
So when a builder comes to you, this is the last question before the final three, I think. We'll see where this goes. But there's a lot of talk about upfront integrity, competence. Mm-hmm. Is really what sums it up in that industry. And in doing those things, having those conversations, knowing those numbers, what would you say? Because a big one is upfront conversation and strategy, knowing the market. What are the categories when you come up with a strategy? When we come up with a strategy and we bring on a builder or engage with a builder, these are the, what are the three things, or there's specific points? There's pricing, there's market, there's timing, or what are they?
Yeah, I think it's marketing strategy is a big one. We haven't touched much on that, but in addition to pricing and home contenting, what's going to go into the home, what level of specification are we going to provide to the market? Those things are not pennies. These are thousands and thousands of dollars. I think what's interesting is that more commonly we're on the side of the table saying you don't need to include that. You don't need to include that. You don't need to include that. And the way I explain it to them is the home is going to bring a price in the market, and the least comfortable conversation that we're going to have is when you come back to me and say, I've overspent the budget, I need you to raise the price, because the market doesn't care if you overspent. The market's going to pay you what it's going to pay you. So we got to get that dialed in just right. But I think the bigger thing, or not the bigger thing, but just as importantly is what is the marketing strategy? So if you've got a single individual home, what does your market strategy look like? Versus if I've got a neighborhood, what does my marketing strategy look like? Is it 5 lots or is it 100 lots? And there is no one size fits all for any builder, any project, or any development. So you really have to custom create the elements that are most important. For example, social media is a good one. It's a massive driver of business for us today. I have a neighborhood right now where the number one provider of traffic is our social media program. We get a lot of unrepresented buyers through social media. But I have other projects where the story is a little more difficult to tell. There's nothing that's extremely unique about it. And so the places where you have a bigger story to tell, you can dedicate more assets towards social media, just for example. And there are other places where we need to create collateral. We need to create beautiful visuals. We need to put it into the Atlanta Fine Homes, Sotheby's international marketing machine, and just let it go to work, where there's not a lot of additional charges involved, something like that. So, really it just depends, really thinking through that marketing, not overspending on that side, but also putting the dollars in the right categories.
Is there ever a matter of, okay, we're buying the land now, we've got to zone it, we've got a permit, we've got to, whatever that project calls for. Mm-hmm. Is there also, let's push this ahead, let's hold off because of different components of the marketing or budget or whatever it might be that you look at and help people move their way through?
I would say, everything takes longer than originally projected. I don't know
you've had like 10 good quotes on Bill. We're going to have to go dice them up. Everything takes longer than projected. It
always does. And again, I love my builder clients. If you're watching this, but they would all agree they are incredibly optimistic. So I don't know how many times I've heard, we're going to, we submitted for the permit. We're going to have it in 3 weeks. We're going to break ground the week following and we'll have it delivered in 4 months. So just tell the client it's going to be ready in 5 months and 1 week from today. Okay, I know that's probably not a good idea. So they're optimistic.
Exactly. I think it's like perpetual optimism.
Right.
Keeps us in business. Or I think it's a Winston Churchill quote I looked up. It was like, the key to success is enthusiastically moving forward from failure to failure.
Right.
That's optimistic, kind of.
That's our business, right? We, and we are too, when we're projecting sales absorption pace, we want to say 10 a month, no problem, and the builders are going, that's not likely, so we keep each other in check is probably the best way to put it.
I love it. All right. Final 3. Sure. Number 1, what has been your best tool or resource for business or your career?
Mentors. I was very, very fortunate early in my career to have some really tremendous mentors. My father was very influential. He owned his own business. I really watched the way that he treated people, and I learned from him the way to treat people. How you build relationships with people, how you treat people with respect, how you continue to build relationships with the people that you want to be around. So I learned a lot of that from him. And then on the professional side, when I moved out of construction into sales, I had a few random skills. My real estate degree was essentially a finance degree. So I knew how to sit down with people on my Hewlett-Packard HP-12C and calculate payments. That's how I built trust. But I didn't know how to sell homes. And so I had someone who was the best face-to-face, eyeball-to-eyeball salesperson that I've ever seen, who was very, very willing to mentor and help me learn how to do that. I listened to what he said, and I went and did what he said. It was as simple as that. And
what was it?
Just the language of the sale. What does it sound like to talk to someone about something? How do you... we used to train on critical path and sell on critical path. And then that, really evolved into a more relationship-driven timeline analysis for the buyer of what do they know, what do they need to know, how do we figure out where they are, and how do we match them with the needs for the product that we have. It was just listening to him. If someone gives you an objection, like these are the objections that can come up, here's how you handle it. This is what it sounds like. Using the feel, felt, found method of I understand how you feel. We've run into a lot of people who have felt the same way, but what we found is, and just being able to use some of those tools, just the language of the sale and some of those negotiation skills and being calm when other people are not. Those are just things that I learned from watching him. So mentoring to me was just the most propelling thing I would say in my career, having good ones and listening to them.
And what about, back to your dad, how to treat people? Do you have any story that comes to mind of that just kind of really sat with you and lived with you moving forward?
I think, 2 in particular, he really, he was in the home building industry. And so, when I was young and working on job sites, he worked for a home building company, but developed relationships with the investors who were investing in those projects. So I remember I was probably 8 to 10 years old, having those investors come to him and saying, hey, we want you to start this project. We own a neighborhood. We'd like to get you started in the business, and then watched him kind of nurture those relationships. So, having people actually approach you versus you having to approach them, I think it said a lot about the way that he treated people, and he had a couple of partners along the way that didn't exactly work out, but he handled it, with class and dignity, and took care of his subcontractors and vendors, even when his partners weren't. So he had to, dump some partners, but he kept his people and took good care of them. Even when it meant sometimes as a family, we had to sacrifice to keep that business going. He always took care of other people.
Well, the big picture, it's always easy in the short run to make the easy decision, but that decision in the long run, you don't think people really notice.
Right.
Or that it's really going to matter. And then when you look back and you kind of made a lot of right decisions, or just by other people, by doing the right thing, it's interesting how even though people don't know they're paying attention, it seems to have the effect that they certainly must have been.
Yeah, we're all prone to bad moments, but I think, we look for patterns of behavior. I think people, whether they think so or not, they understand patterns of behavior in people. And, I think that's what we look for, whether we're bringing a young person onto the team, like you have done a lot of times in your past. What is their pattern? It's not a single individual, problem or concern. It's what's the pattern of behavior? Are they doing it repeatedly, or is their pattern really good with one minor, thing that we can help improve on? So you're going to make a lot of mistakes as you're growing and learning. So it's okay to do that, provided that the pattern is the right type of pattern, growing and learning.
The only way to eliminate mistakes is just to eliminate being a person, which
true.
isn't really a solution, right?
It's not in my world. I don't have that option.
What's your biggest advice to salespeople, yourself, other people, on how to perpetuate or continue to improve in life? And not, we have these, but how do you make sure that trajectory is improvement always?
Yeah, it's growing and learning and being open for new ideas. We are always learning. You and I were talking about right before we jumped on the podcast, just what this does for you to be exposed to so many people with so many different views on how you approach real estate. And I know I would just reflect what you said to me, which was it's so eye-opening to talk to people that have these perspectives that have been successful for various reasons. That's really critically important, that we're open for those people that have good ideas, and that we don't, think that the end of our knowledge has arrived, and the way that we do it is always going to be the best way to approach it. It's a constant, continual, changing and evolving process.
What great advice. I love that you said grow, learn, and be open to new ideas.
Yeah.
Always learn. Our team, actually, one of our mottos is learn, grow, and kick ass. Actually, we can cuss on the podcast. Or be open to new ideas. We'll change that. Love that. Next question is book. What is a book that you have read that's really changed your life and or career that we just should not go on without reading ourselves?
Okay, I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to give you two, but the first one is
good. I love it.
By the same author, so it's almost the same thing. But Simon Sinek wrote a book called Start With Why, and it is a tremendous book. In that book, he talks about what he calls the world's most simple concept, and it's what, how, and why. And when you get to the why of what you're doing, it's your real turbocharge, your real superpower is why you're doing what you're doing. But most companies and most people don't know why they're doing what they're doing. And so he walks through how to unlock that and then how to leverage that. Unbelievable book. I could talk for 30 minutes on
that. We should have talked about that, because the video, he's got his video that kind of made him known.
Yeah.
And he goes, Apple tells you who they are, why they do what they do. Oh, by the way, would you like a computer? Whereas most companies say, this is what we do. Microsoft tells you
what they do. Right.
Right. And then you can decide between them and everybody else if you want it.
Right. It's a great book. And then he wrote another book called The Infinite Game. And I have to tell you, it was powerful just because of the content, but I actually listened to that one on Audible. And so I don't love to read business books. I read a lot, but I don't like reading business books. So what I've learned is that Audible for me is a tremendous tool to get through business books. The best way to do it. He's really good at reading his stuff, but The Infinite Game there are so many parallels in our company versus other companies in our marketplace here at Atlanta Fine Homes. And going through COVID especially, we didn't furlough or lay off or change a single compensation plan or bonus plan for a single person in our company. Not one. And David's mindset around that was, my people are more important than my short-term profitability. And you see companies getting in trouble when they become beholden to stockholders rather than their people. And so it's putting people first. There's so many parallels behind what he described and the way that our company operates. So it made it even more powerful for me. But it's an unbelievably powerful book. So those two.
So you gave a great example of Atlanta Fine Homes, and it's so true, because decisions at the core and the leadership of the company, how contagious that is tremendous. As an agent in the company, I talk to David often, but not even every day, but it's present. But in that book, what was in that book, what was a tangible takeaway in the book that you could give us, or something that he said?
Yeah, let me draw another parallel back to our company.
Please.
The world that I come from, we talked about that earlier, private and public home building. And anybody that works in a corporate environment will understand this. You feel like you're in this constant state of financial forecasting. So you forecast, you either make it or you don't, and then you reforecast. If you make your goals, then your forecast should get better. If you don't make it, you're in this constant, continual question and answer session as to why. And then you have to take short-term initiatives to the detriment of the long-term business success to make up for those financial gains. It's this constant pattern. When you're in it, it's just part of your normal life. But when you escape from it, you realize how detrimental it can be.
Yeah.
As a high-level manager for our company here, we make one expense projection at the beginning of the year. I'm bonus based on profitability of this company, but we don't forecast profitability metrics here. We don't forecast our financials that way. David takes care of it. We are simply here to help support the engine that drives that profitability. So when we look at things like increase in market share, we have the highest increase in market share of any brokerage in our city this year by far. Regardless of the fact that we're about 25% the size in terms of agents of the largest brokerages in town, we're the largest brokerage in the city for the first time in our history. It's unbelievable. We've had a 15% market share increase this year. We look at those numbers in the rearview mirror. We didn't go into it with a goal of gaining X amount of market share, because when you do it that way, you can make expenses that are detrimental to the long-term goal of the business. And so we look at it the other way. How can we help and support our people? That drives the engine. That makes us profitable. It supports why we do what we do.
Beautiful. I'm going to share with you. I just watched a video he was talking to Arthur C. Brooks, and he talked about, just because you love him and I love him, rewarding people on behavior, not just results. Yeah. And then that gets the results, but there's a lot more to it.
Yeah.
But beautifully said. I almost may edit what I just said out, because what you said before that is just, wow, what a great way to put it. Last question. If there is one thing you would hope we all remember from this interview and nothing else, what is it?
Find a good mentor, find people that you can learn from, emulate them, continue to grow, stay open for new ideas. Regardless of where you are, what you do, who you work for, what your role is, that will always serve you.
Say that again, if you can.
I don't know if I can.
I want everybody to hear it. That was beautiful. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks for a great interview.
Oh, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. This was fun.
Everybody, Scott Payne, Atlanta Fine Homes. Good to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Jere.